Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to February Q A. Now, coming to you from a very wet Queensland, guys. You know, if you've kept an eye on the news, you would have seen that most of Queensland, I mean even New South Wales now, has been very heavily affected by flooding. Thankfully, you know, I'm up high here where I've built the house, so you know, I'm pretty good here, thankfully. But yeah, there has been some damage in general around the farm, but you know, certainly nowhere near the degree of what some people unfortunately have suffered. So let's talk about what's new here at Ozzie Reviews. So we released the big product announcement, being the Victor Precision VP25, which is a 25 round 22 LR magazine made for the Australian market. So I was very proud to be asked to do the exclusive release of that, and you know, that was quite popular. If you haven't seen that, have a look at that review as well. A couple other reviews that I did obviously this month, but next month what I'm looking at doing is a few more pistol reviews. I know it's been a little bit of a while, guys, but that's the problem with COVID and ranges and everything like that. It's just been a bit of a pain to try to organise, but I've got some really cool stuff coming up in the month of March. And I'm also going to be doing some political interviews leading up to this year's federal Australian election. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, so let's jump into the first question that we got here. Now, Chilla's submitted a couple of questions here. His first one is, what are my thoughts on duty to inform? And what he means by that, guys, is when you have concealed carry in the US, in some areas you have a obligation to inform, like law enforcement, that you are carrying. So look, to be honest, mate, I first looked at that and I thought to myself, well, look, we can't even use pistols for recreational shooting here in Australia, so we're a long way away from concealed carry in my view. But you know, you have asked me what my thoughts are on it, and you know, I sort of have mixed thoughts on it. I mean, you know, if you're getting pulled up by law enforcement, you know, perhaps they're not going to be as jittery. You know, if you tell them that you do have a firearm, they see where the firearm is, it's all good, other than they just stumble across it. But then again, I think to myself, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you're not pulling it out on them or anything like that, well, what's the problem? So yeah, I kind of have mixed thoughts about that one. Next question you got here is, what are my thoughts on lead bullets? Now, that's an interesting one, because usually in a lot of very liberal places in the States like California, you know, I believe that they've had that big push to go away from lead. Now, once again, mixed thoughts on that one, but you know, if the technology is correct, where they do say that you know, if you go away to other polymers and so forth, you can actually get increased velocity, you know, obviously increase performance out of the cartridge. I mean, I'm all for it, but I'd really have to look at both and compare them, you know, to make my final decision on it. Next question you got here is, what are my thoughts on barrel fluting or skeletonized firearms? Does this kind of design serve any or utility purpose, or is it just about the looks? Look, not only is it looks, but obviously it saves weight, and that's the big thing when you know, come to using firearms. Whether you're hiking, you know, and you're going for a hike for kilometers and kilometers, you know, chasing a deer or what it is you might be doing, it's always nice to have that you know, lighter firearm, because it certainly weighs you down. Every little extra amount of weight will weigh you down after you're carrying it for a couple of hours. So that's pretty much what it's for. I mean, they talk about barrel fluting to, you know, help cool the barrel, but it's a little bit of a myth in my view, because, you know, if you've got, say, a pencil thin barrel, then obviously it's going to heat up a lot quicker than what a thicker varmint barrel would, right? So physics, once again, the thinner barrel is going to cool a lot quicker, isn't it? Where the heavier barrel, yes, longer to heat up, longer to cool down, because there's just more mass. That's the way that I understand it, so, and that I've seen it through my own personal use of firearms. So for me, I think it's more of a cosmetic look rather than, you know, that real practical application. Next question you got here is my thoughts on body armour and knives with regards to the law. Well, mate, I see it as a complete joke. I don't see how you can prohibit a knife but then allow another knife, for example. So let's have a look at that, okay? So a flick knife, for example, here in Queensland is category M, Okay, so in other words, not a knife that you just flick open like one-handed opening knife. I'm talking about where you press a button and it just comes straight out, or you press a button and it flicks out. Okay, so they are category M here in Queensland. What is the difference between that and say a fixed knife of the same length? People may argue and go, oh, well, you can conceal it. Okay, well, what about a normal old-fashioned folding knife that you can conceal that doesn't come out with, a spring assist or something like that on it? It makes no difference. What it comes down to is the person's ill intent. If we were to bring up the stats on knife attacks, I'm pretty sure you'd find a lot of knife attacks are just with fixed blade knives. So what's the difference? A knife is a knife. Just because it's a spring assisted knife doesn't mean that it's sharper or it's going to cut more violently than what a fixed blade knife would. So I do find that ridiculous. And also with regards to body armour as well. Now, a lot of people don't understand that, Kevlar helmets, for example, aren't restricted. Okay, so it's not a restricted or categorised weapon under the Weapons Act here in Queensland, nor is there restrictions with importing them. So there's no restrictions there, but how many crooks are running around with, Kevlar helmets on? I don't see any. Have you seen any reports of that? So my feeling on that is the same with body armour. Why would you want to restrict someone's ability to protect themselves, especially with something that's non-lethal? It's not like you can kill someone with body armour. So what's the problem with someone being able to wear body armour should they wish to? I mean, for example, if you were in some sort of situation where you had your life threatened for whatever reason, I don't know what it would be, but someone is making threats to shoot you or kill you, and you wanted to go and purchase yourself some body armour, what's the problem with that? In my view, I don't see any problem with that. So that's my thoughts on it. Next question you got here is my thoughts on culling with firearms. Now, I believe that it's definitely required, and I know that you're asking about, large professional culls. I do believe that there's a terrible amount of meat wastage when it happens, especially with deer. One of the national parks not too far from where I am had a large cull, and there was, well over 1,000 deer just shot and left to rot on the ground. And I see that as a real tragedy because the meat is just so, useful. It's delicious. It's great meat to eat. And I look at that and I think that it could be done a lot more responsibly, so that perhaps, when an animal is shot, there can be some logistical way for you to be able to, harvest and use that meat. So I don't know, organisations working with other organisations and businesses, whatever. But I think that there's definitely an avenue for more responsible use of edible meat that's shot. I mean, if you're doing a cull, for example, on okay, what else could we be talking about there? Like, say, for example, doing a cull on foxes. Well, okay, well, people aren't exactly going to go along and eat the fox meat. So, that's a little bit of a different story there, and common sense has to, come into play. Next question I got here is from Ben. He says, hi Ozzie, do you think the pending war with Russia and Ukraine will have an effect on the price and availability of our ammunition and firearms? I'd hate to say yes, but I am going to say yes, mate, because I'm pretty sure these days they love to just use any conflict as an excuse to raise prices, or any sort of thing like COVID or anything. I mean, prices just go up. People say, why are the prices going up? Oh, because of COVID. Oh, okay, well, how does that affect what you're doing? And it'll be the similar story with like ammunition. You could ask, say, an ammunition supplier that's not supplying obviously the war or anything like that, well, what's the problem? Why do your prices have to go up? People may argue and say because the demand of the war is utilising more brass, etc., etc. Perhaps so, I mean, but I just look at it with regards to fuel. They started blaming the invasion on Ukraine as a reason to raise the fuel. So think about here in Australia, like the fuel immediately just skyrocketed, and then they blame that, and you're going, well, hang on, all the fuel that's here, how does that have anything to do with future shipments of fuel? once again, my belief, my view on it is that they just raise the prices because they simply can. Where else can you go? And it's very much the same with a lot of other products that we use. Next question I got here is from Nathan. He says, "Hi Ozzie, when it comes to voting in Queensland, what political parties should I be voting for that have shooters' best interests in mind?" Mate, I've gone on about this for numerous years. Liberal Democrats are at the top of my list. You know, here in Queensland, obviously we have, you know, there's no Senate, there's no upper house. So it's a little bit different when it comes to, you know, trying to get those members into those lower house seats. If you've got someone from the LDP, definitely vote for them. If you've got someone from the Katter Party, vote for them. One Nation, vote for them. You know, anyone else who wants to, you know, give shooters a go, or at least stand up against continual restrictions. And before people, and I know there will be people who'll say, "Oh, but Pauline Hanson, she supports the NFA." Yes, but she also supported, you know, standing up against the Adler or lever action shotgun reclassification. So my argument to people is, do you prefer to have a party that may go, okay, we're not going to fight for, you know, gun rights in the sense of ease restrictions, but we're going to draw a line in the sand and not support any further restrictions? Or do you want the alternative, which is the majors, who you know every year are going to restrict, restrict, restrict? That's your choice. So that's why I say anyone bar the majors. Vote for anyone bar the majors. Next question you got here is, what are my thoughts on buying second-hand firearms? Do I prefer to purchase brand new, or have I purchased second-hand before? Mate, look, I prefer to buy brand new. I don't know, I guess I'm a little bit, you know, what's the word, skeptical. I just think, well, they're second-hand for a reason. If they're that good, why are they now second-hand? So, yeah, I do like to buy brand new. However, in some cases, you know, it'll be something second-hand that may be hard to get or isn't made anymore, and obviously you've got no choice but to buy that. And the next question you got here is, what are my thoughts on the best option to reduce recoil in a firearm? Do I use muzzle brakes or any recoil pads on my rifles? Generally, no. Look, I've got that Limb Saver recoil pad on my Benelli M4 shotgun. I prefer to use a decent recoil pad rather than a muzzle brake. When I'm out shooting, I like to create as little noise as possible. I don't want to create twice the noise. The problem with muzzle brakes is exactly that. I don't use any on any of my firearms, and the reason for it, mate, is exactly that. The noise is just horrendous. I prefer to, you know, suck it up a little bit, put a decent recoil pad on, and just roll with the recoil of the caliber that I'm using. Next question I got here is from Chris, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, what are your thoughts on night vision scopes compared to thermal? Which do you prefer?" Mate, I like thermal personally. Night vision, I don't mind, and I've used a little bit of it now. However, I do like thermal in the sense of, you know, that heat detection is just so obvious, and especially of a nighttime, you know, when the surrounding areas are a lot cooler. So, you know, I do like that, and I do find that for me, it offers a lot more benefits over that of, you know, just straight out night vision. And my main benefit is just a clear identification of, you know, what you're looking at shooting. Next question you got here is, what 30 cal projectiles do I find best for large peaks? And do you prefer 308, 30-06 or 300 Win Mag? Wait, look, I'll tell you now, those 165 grain Sierra Game Kings in 308, I used that for many years when I was doing my contract shooting. You know, I was using it out of my Ruger SR762. I used them out of the, basically the SLR equivalent, the DSA SA58. And I'm telling you now, there's no pig in Australia that's going to stand up to one of them. If you want to go 30-06 or you want to go 300 Win Mag, yeah, look, you can do it. Bit more recoil, you know, especially 300 Win Mag. There's obviously a lot more expense as well. They're a lot more expensive to buy the ammo. But mate, I just go for 308 with those 165 grain Sierra Game Kings. Next question I got here is from Neil, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, can you give any reason that ammunition is becoming difficult to purchase? I purchased some 17 HMR Hornady ammo last week, and my local dealer said delivery was limited and get it while you can." Mate, I have said that numerous times, haven't I? Get what you can while you can, because the prices only go up and the demand for it only goes up. Currently in the USA, we have massive demands with firearms, ammunition, accessories, all that sort of thing. And quite simply because, you know, with what Biden's trying to push over there and take guns off the people, everyone's, you know, panic buying. So that's where the demand comes from, and especially with rimfires, because rimfires are very much a survival caliber. You know, a lot of people really love rimfires because they don't make a lot of noise. You know, they're very effective on game at those shorter distances, and obviously you can have a lot of rounds and use them fairly cheaply as opposed to centerfire. So, you know, that's my view on that. Now, the next question you got here is, you're also reading that ammunition delivery has become a problem with transportation companies that are no longer delivering. Has there been any updates or news on this? Yes, there has, mate. I know Shooters Union worked with one of the companies and they made some arrangement there. But overall, there's very few, obviously, because there's more regulations in, you know, transporting dangerous goods, like government regulation that they've got to comply with. But once again, you know, it comes back to like, you know, more than one ways to skin a cat when it comes to gun laws. You know, they will continuously try to, you know, hamper us, and I'm talking about the government. So if that means, you know, bringing in various different restrictions, not directly related to firearms, but like to ammo and so forth, well, it all creates further and further restrictions. So yeah, there's still companies, and look, at the end of the day, money talks. So my view on it is, say you lost all the companies, there will be some company that would step up to the plate and go, look at the market here, I've got no competition, of course I'm going to start a transport company for ammunition. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Next question I got here is from Glenn. He says, hi Ozzie, do you know why ADI pistol powder is virtually impossible to get, and do you know if it'll be made again? Mate, I don't, sorry. Because I don't reload, I don't keep a real close eye on it, but I remember ADI making the statement saying that, you know, due to COVID, they found that a lot more people were ordering, and which kind of, you know, in one way I can see it, and in another way I can't, because there are so many ranges were closed, so I would have thought the demand would be less. But that's what they're saying, and they're saying that, you know, it can take up to 6 months to manufacture. So they said that they were overwhelmed with orders that far exceeded their supply capabilities. So that's all that I know. I'm sorry, mate. Next question I got here is from Stuart, and he says, hi Ozzie, I spotted this the other day. What do you reckon of it? Will we get it here? It would make for a good review. So what Stuart's talking about here, he's included a link, and it's the CZ455, is it Ticho? Ticho, from KGmade. It's labelled as the quietest 22LR. So look, I had a quick look at it, and it's integrally suppressed, meaning that it's classed as a suppressed firearm, okay, because it actually has a suppressor as part of it. So completely banned from import. So no, mate, we won't see that here. The next question I've got here is from Paul, and he says, hi Ozzie, I saw your review the other day of the new Victor Precision 25 round magazines. Why are they so expensive, and why can't we import Ruger BX25s instead? Okay, mate, this is a good question. Look, I would like to see the magazines a lot cheaper as well. However, what you need to do is compare the difference in the manufacturing process, okay? When you're looking at like Ruger BX25s, it's an injection mold. So in other words, there's like a cast mold. They inject the hot polymer and synthetic into it, and it dries molded into the body of the magazine, right? It's very, very cheap to do that, the actual running costs of it and the production costs. However, the setup costs of it is, you know, fairly high. So then you've got the other option, which obviously is what Victor Precision has done, and that's CNC machine mags. So in other words, you've got a CNC machine machining a block of acetyl, which is what he uses, okay? Now that's a very high grade synthetic, okay? It's also quite lubricating, so fantastic for obviously mags. Now he uses that for the follower as well, and that's, I believe, one of the reasons why it was so smooth when I was loading it in the review. Also too, like the lips that he uses on his are 70-75 grade aluminium. So, you know, the expense of that alone, like you price how much that aluminium is to buy, and it's horrendous. So, you know, there's been nothing but quality go into those mags in my view. As for importing, well, you can't import a BX25 unless you're a feral pest controller. That's the bottom line, okay? That's why when you see them for sale here in Australia, there's astronomical prices on them, you know, $250, $300 for a used magazine. And that's because people know that you can't import them. I would strongly suggest, mate, you have a look at my video I did on how to import firearms and accessories to Australia, because it will explain to you what bit of legislation federally they apply, okay? Now, I've also heard people who unfortunately are just uneducated in the law of importing, okay, comment and say, well, there's already BX25s here for sale. All you need is Attorney General's import permit. And I'm going, yes, but they are still customs bonded, okay? So in other words, they're still classed as, even though they might be at the shop, at one of your local gun shops, that dealer cannot sell that magazine to you until you get an import permit from the Attorney General's or Home Affairs Department, okay? Which means the only way you'll be given that permit is if you're a feral pest controller, okay, with a Cat D license, because they class that as a Cat D magazine. So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from with that. It is quite frustrating because, you know, people do make comments with very little education in that field. I'm excited about the magazine because I see what it brings here to the Australian market. It has basically filled a void in the Australian market that we've needed for years and years. I find it absolutely ridiculous, in my view, that you can have a license, yet you can't import items that you can legally possess in your state or territory with that category of license. So federally, that's what they do, is they starve you federally. And that's why they keep changing the federal import laws to get tighter and tighter and tighter. It's the same with the same deal with their trigger. So Victor Precision did the AR-15 trigger, okay, that obviously goes in the Warwick arms and other straight pull category B firearms here in Australia. But you would think, okay, well, why can't I import a trigger for my Warwick arms from the US, okay, and import something cheaper? Well, no, because customs, if you were importing the Warwick arms as if it was from overseas, they would class that as a category D license with their cosmetic appearance laws, okay? So therefore, any part for it, in the eyes of customs or border force, they class it as category D. Okay, so do you understand why I was so excited when they were making an AR-15 trigger right here in Australia? Because that has no effect on import. All you need to do is be applicably licensed for it. So in other words, if you have a Warwick Arms category B license, you know, you can simply get one of the AR-15 triggers to use in that firearm from Victor Precision with no import permits. You don't need any import permits because it's made here. The same applies with the magazine. So I really hope you can see where I'm coming from there, mate. I think a lot of people don't appreciate the time and the effort that's gone into this to bring something to the market that normally we just don't see. Or if we see, the prices are just absolutely astronomical. So as for you know, the VP25, the Victor Precision 25 magazine, yeah, I do think it's justified with the price. And that's why I say it, is because have a look at what the manufacturing process is, have a look at the material that's used in it. Okay, it is just quality from head to toe, and it's lighter than the BX25, but the material is stronger. So, you know, it's just a win-win situation because you don't have to have an import permit as a feral pest controller to be able to go and buy one. So I hope you get a good understanding of where I'm coming from with that one. Okay guys, that concludes this month's Q&A. Thank you very much once again to all of you who submit your questions. I do really enjoy getting them. So if you do want to become a part of the Q&A series, because guys, I'm getting ridiculous amounts of questions every day just from the general public. I'm sorry, but I just don't have time to answer it. But I will make the time for you guys who support me via Patreon. So hence the reason for this series. Thanks again for watching guys. So we'll catch you on the next review.